Absolutely spanked, 64-7 by the Sharks in the latest round of Super Rugby. Peter Fairbairn, of course, senior Rebels writer, joins us here on Sunday Sports Central. Hi, Peter.
G'day, BP. I think you're probably feeling a little bit better than I am right now.
Not good, yeah. Look, I didn't get up that early to watch it. I caught the tail end of the Brumbies, who also had a loss over in South Africa to the Stormers overnight, but had a look at a few of the highlights this morning, and yeah, that's as big a scoreline as I've seen. I can remember seeing in Super Rugby.
Yeah, that's right. I think there was one a few years ago. The Crusaders walloped the Waratahs about 86-0, but look, that was certainly the heaviest defeat that the Melbourne Rebels have ever suffered, and really disappointing result.
Just give us a bit of a feel for the game and where the Sharks sort of got on top early. It's a tough trip, isn't it? And they've been over there for quite a few days in the build-up, and we see the Australian sides go over there and normally spend a couple of weeks, play a couple of matches. Fairly daunting. The crowds over there are pretty intimidating, but you want to be more competitive. Where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, look, you're right. And I think coming off three really disappointing defeats in Australia where we led at half-time and then the bye week and then off to South Africa for one of the toughest assignments in Super 15 to play in Durban against the Sharks. Look, I think if you look at the statistics on paper, we weren't actually completely dominated in the game. It was just, as silly as it sounds with a margin this big, it was just that touch of class that the Sharks possessed that we simply didn't. Too many errors from our boys, no consistency, an inability to build up consistent high numbers of phases, and just, I suppose, a little bit of experience and a little bit of wise thinking probably went missing there. And the Sharks are just too good a team. Their back row is fantastic. In fact, their entire forward pack is absolutely superb. It's almost a world-class forward eight by itself. And then they've got the speed to really take advantage of any opportunity they get out wide and really make you pay.
Peter, I'd imagine there's got to be some concern amongst the Melbourne Rebels hierarchy. The expectations were bigger for year three to build on the handful of wins last season. Obviously, the recruiting was obvious over the off-season, adding some very, very good names. And on paper, it looked like, gee, if this team can really gel together, they could have some impact. Obviously haven't been able to make the most of those home games very early in the season. The crowds have been down a little bit. I'm not trying to paint a negative picture, but it's an interesting stage for a club still in its infancy, trying to go to the next level and also trying to keep that belief amongst the supporters and those running the club that, hey, we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I mean, in a really competitive sporting landscape, we know that AFL runs this town and that the Storm have managed to really make their mark on Melbourne, I suppose, probably through success more than anything. And, at the Rebels, we're completely aware that we need to win games to get more people going along and to get more people interested in rugby union in what is such a competitive landscape. And on paper, it is a fantastic team, and we were, we could so easily have been going onto this trip 3-1 or 2-2, with these leads we had at half-time and let slip. I thought against the Waratahs we should have won that game. We were the better side.
Yep.
I thought against the Reds we did enough work in the first in about 70 minutes of the 80 minutes, we did enough work to be pretty disappointed to come out of that one empty-handed. So, it's probably very draining on the lads, I would have thought, to go close to winning those games and not do so. And I'm certainly not making excuses for what was a really terrible performance overnight, but the confidence level of the group can't be all that high at the moment. And what Damien Hill and his coaching team have got to do is they've got to tap into what's wrong, where the issues are, and they've got to resolve them and get the guys playing winning rugby again.
Yeah, when you're not winning games, obviously there's certain characters within the group who have that ability to galvanise everyone. We know Gareth Delve is the skipper, and we obviously have known James O'Connor to be in the spotlight and Kurtley Beale. Are they the players, or are there some others who can really maybe just get the group together? Is it a players' chat that maybe is away from the coach? Sometimes the players just need to get together and look each other in the eye and say, let's lift the standard here, because the coach obviously can only do so much.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's no doubt a few home truths need to be spoken, and I've got a lot of faith in Gareth Delve as the skipper, that he is the right man to get the most out of this team, and I've also got the complete faith that Damien Hill's the right coach. In the off-season, we lost a lot of very experienced players, and a lot of those players weren't necessarily the world-beater players. They were guys coming towards the end of their career, but the average age of the squad has lost about 4 or 5 years in 12 months, which is a massive turnover. And I think there's a few of those younger guys, James O'Connor, Kurtley Beale, these types of guys are still very young. and I have no doubt they will be fantastic leaders, but they just need to, I suppose, they need to work together. There's a few of the older heads still around, guys like Nick Henderson, the big prop, he's, I think, 31, 32. Someone like Nick needs to be really getting in there, and a few home truths certainly need to be spoken. There's no doubt about it, BP.
I read today, Peter Fairbairn, our special guest from the Melbourne Rebels, last night 64-7 loss to the Sharks over in South Africa, that maybe you're poised to secure the signature of Wallaby Luke Burgess. That's been reported today. Can you touch on that for us?
Yeah, look, I can't confirm it, but I'm really on the same boat as you, BP, in that I don't know if it's 100% confirmed. But I know that Luke is somebody the club's been looking at for a long time, and I know obviously with Fanger, Nick Phipps moving up to the Waratahs for next season, that's going to be a spot that needs to be replaced. And to be able to get a scrum half of Luke's ability, and I think really importantly also of Luke's experience, will just be so beneficial for this side. And I think that's a really positive signing if the Rebels can get it across the line. Yeah,
37 tests, 56 Super Rugby matches, currently playing, as I said, in France there with Toulouse. So it'll be a nice addition. It's a shame in a way, and I know it's such a taxing competition with the amount of travel and the actual physical game itself across 80 minutes. It's a shame though, Pete, in my eyes, that there's not more rounds, because if you don't get off to a good start, it really does put you on the back foot, whereas other competitions that maybe have 22 weeks, 23 weeks and more, AFL, NRL, you've got a chance at least to work your way back if you have a bad start.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I personally think it'd be great for a start to have every team should play every other team at least once.
Yeah.
So I personally think it's a real shame that, this year the Rebels won't play. I think it's the Bulls. And last year that was almost the turning point of the season, that we played fantastically against the Bulls at home. And while we didn't win, we went very close to it. And I think it would have been great for the boys to be able to test themselves against the Bulls again this year and use that as, kind of a chance to see how much they've improved in the last 12 months. And then I think the Wellington Hurricanes we don't play this year either, and that's really disappointing. You'd like to see, in an even fixture, every team playing every other team. I know that Auckland, for example, who were a struggling team last year, the two teams who they don't play are the Western Force and the Southern Kings, who are both tipped to finish at the bottom of their conferences. So that makes it quite hard for Auckland to compete in the New Zealand conference when they don't get to play against a couple of those teams that they would have given themselves a really good chance again. I suppose because we have such a full fixture of international rugby, and especially this year, obviously, with the British and Irish Lions coming to town. Then you've got the Rugby Championship with the Springboks, All Blacks and the Pumas from Argentina. And then you've got the Spring Tour in Europe as well. So you've got so much rugby being played that there's not any space in the calendar, in the fixture to fit in those additional games. But you're right, it makes it really tough for a team if they start poorly, but we've seen teams do it in the past. We saw the Sharks do it last year, finish really strongly to sneak into the finals. Then they won their first two finals, and unfortunately for them, they went down in the decider, but they came kind of from nowhere to even sneak into the finals. So you don't start putting lines through teams quite yet, but look, we're probably 2 or 3 rounds away from being able to really look at who's going to be able to challenge for a playoff spot and whether the Rebels are going to be able to do that this year.
Indeed. Pete, next assignment, as I let you go, what's next?
Next, so we head to Bloemfontein to play the Cheetahs next week. Yep. That used to be almost, not that we've ever actually won outside of Australia, so you'd never mark it down as a win for us, but it was certainly for Australian teams touring South Africa. The Cheetahs was one you always went, that's a very winnable game. However, they've really turned their game around this year. They've won. They won in Perth last night against the Western Force. Last week they won against the Waratahs, and they also won against the Highlanders in Dunedin, or in Invercargill, I think. So they've had a really good Southern Hemisphere or Australia-New Zealand tour, and they'll be really up for it and really ready to play in front of their home fans. So that's a really tough assignment. The boys have got a lot of work to do on the training ground. Just got to cut out these errors, and like you alluded to earlier, BP, maybe a few home truths need to be spoken, and it probably does need to be a little bit player-driven. Yeah, well, sometimes when you're away from home and it's just the boys and you haven't got any other distractions, so that can galvanise a group to really just focus on the task at hand rather than maybe being in their own backyard. It might be good to be away at this particular time. Peter, appreciate the update. We will keep in touch. Good on you, BP. Take care, mate. Peter Fairbairn, he is the senior Melbourne Rebels writer. The result overnight, 64-7.